I know you asked some really good questions, but instead of showing the questions there, I'm gonna show. Okay, so let's start like this. Um, we talked about a little bit about some of the major parts in in Pantheon. So when talking about guild currency, others refer to this maybe as DKP or points, guild points, or whatever. I don't like that terminology because I don't want it to be just some reward that only raiders get. I want to find a way to make it something that the guild can feel like they're a part of without having to be in a raid group 24/7 to earn. Um, and I want to find a ways to incorporate more of the guild in everyday playing type type of scenario. So I like to refer to this as guild currency, and there's a few reasons why. Because I do want to make it so that it does have value within the guild, not just within raids, but at the guild level as a whole. And one of the things you brought up was potentially you're favoring raiders and crafters over people that are exploring and just playing the game. So I wanted to kind of start with, let's talk about some of the key pieces of Pantheon. So one of the key pieces that's going to be there, and we'll go ahead and I'll just name off a few. Raiding, of course, is going to be a key piece. You're going to have dungeons, which is going to be a key piece. You're going to have the perception system, or I'm going to say questing, and I'm going to put another one as exploring. I think that covers a little bit of the perception system as a whole. Excuse me. I can't get rid of this cough. Oh man. Okay, so we got raiding, dungeons, questing, exploring, crafting.
Yeah, I'd say exploring kind of goes into perception. Questing is also probably going to be part of perception. I think all these things are going to lead into perception.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think perception is going to kind of live within the game as a whole. Let's see here. So I have 5 right now. I have raiding, dungeons, raiding, dungeons, questing, exploring, crafting. For some reason it doesn't show up that well in the thing. I'm gonna try to fix that. But is there anything else that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head. Like I said, perception goes into that, but there's not that much information on the perception stuff yet.
Yeah, I agree. And well, so I'm gonna put perception as it's really going to fall under that in my mind, that questing mindset, and it's going to be a part. So perception is how to say this. Perception is something you're going to run across during the game while exploring, while adventuring, while raiding, while doing dungeons, while doing every piece of the game. So I think perception is just a way to kind of encompass it all. But I think really when you're looking at it, you're looking at exploring as a key staple of that. You have to really explore, get out there, try to find new things to potentially find some of those or trigger some of those perceptions. And then once you trigger that perception, then you start on that quest, that journey, figure out what the next step is, where it goes, and where it takes you, and so on and so forth. So I think exploring leads into questing, from what I understand and gather from the game. Whether you're exploring a city or a dungeon or a raid or just some random obscure cave or object out in the middle of nowhere, all of this kind of wraps in together when you're exploring. That triggers that perception system depending on your skills and what you've learned or achieved at that point, and then that'll lead down the roads into questing. So I think that'll cover everything under the perception system. Then you have, as a guild for say, I'm trying to think of the things that really make a guild what it is. The community aspect, the helping people, really bonding, having a good time, logging on and being able to log on with familiar faces and friends and do these things. Do these raids, do these dungeons, go explore, find a quest, or go, I don't know, sit around the campfire crafting all night long, telling stories. So, so these are the kind of 5 staples in my mind, and I might be missing one, but I'm not. It's not coming to me right now. So I'll go off of these 5 for starters. We'll start with these 5.
Yeah. The 6 maybe could be considered PvP. I know there are going to be some PvP shards or servers, but I know that's not one of the actual major parts of
Well, no, that's
the
good.
game.
That's good because it is for some. Okay.
And when it comes to exploring, as I understood it from a couple of the devs, um, the exploring comes in like, oh, here's a quest line, and go to this other person to continue this quest line, while you can go exploring and find a random hut out in the woods where that person will send you on a quest to increase your perception against orcs or something like that. So that's where I feel like the extra exploring comes in handy for finding lore and stuff.
Okay. So I'll tell you how I interpret what I've heard up until this point, especially about perception um, and how it's going to work. So, excuse me. I turn my head to cough like I've got a microphone because I used to have a standalone microphone in front of my face. I turn my head to cough and I've got the headset on, so sorry, I forget all the time.
Mm.
Okay, so perception system. This is my general understanding of the perception system and how it's going to work. Yes, exploring is a very big part of this. So as you're traveling through a city, a dungeon, a raid, as you're wandering down a path and you happen to stumble across some random statue out in the middle of the path that you're not sure what it is. If your perception skill, if your keeper skill is high enough and you have the right race and class, you could potentially trigger a perception at that point in time. Some of these are only available. You can only see these through again through the perception system. So unlike, or I'm sorry, some of these you can only see if you're a certain class or race. So if a certain object that I find out, so a statue, for example. Let's say there's a statue out in the middle of a lake of a dragon. We've seen a picture of, something similar to that. So let's say I stumble across this dragon. Well, as a warrior, especially let's say I'm in a, ogre warrior, and I stumble across this, and it does nothing for me. My perception skill is as high as it can be at that level. It absolutely, I have no interaction with it, no perception whatsoever. However, if let's say I have a dark mirror in my group, who just happens to be I don't know, a summoner. So I have a dark mirror summoner in my group, and this perception is triggered when a dark mirror is in the area with a certain perception. So at that time, that dark mirror is able to trigger that, and then as a group, we're able to see what that is, and then go down that path and really explore what that quest is. Once we get that perception, it then starts that quest line, but that quest line is more of a, hey, you need to find XYZ dungeon or XYZ, you need to find XYZ person to find out what the next step in this quest line is. It doesn't give you any direction, it doesn't give you any understanding of really where to go. It might say, hey, up north there's another statue similar to this one. You need to find that statue, and that'll lead you on the path, or continue on the path that you need to be on. So you as a group then say, okay, do we want to continue to explore down this path and go the route that we're going, or do we want to stop here, turn around, and go wherever this perception is leading us, more or less, or if it's not leading us anywhere, it just kind of gives us some vague information. Do we want to go exploring around the area to try to find this, to put together the clues of what this might be or what it is? So yes, in that aspect, exploring is going to be beneficial because you're finding these perceptions, for example. However, here's where it gets here's where and we'll actually you know what, I don't want to table that real quick. I want to table that because I want to bring back where guild currency comes in, and how that can factor into something like that.
Hmm.
So if I'm talking about guild currency, let me go ahead and pull that into the conversation here, because that's really what we want to talk about real quick.
Yeah.
So here's my thoughts on guild currency. So let's take a step back, and I want to talk about guild currency for a minute.
Hmm.
So if I have guild currency in the game, guild currency to me is nothing more than just a type of point or coin or whatever system, but I'm gonna label it as guild currency. It's something that within the guild has value as long as the guild is producing material, equipment, items that are purchasable with this said currency. So for me, talked about a few options, a few ways to do this, and I'm gonna go a little bit more in detail on my vision of this. It requires a few things from Pantheon and the developers to make it actually work, but I'll go ahead and just kind of describe it, and then we'll go from there on to the major parts of Pantheon and how this might work for covering this. So in my mind, I think of, and I'll go to the guild house example. I think of, we have housing coming, maybe an expansion or two down the road. So we build a guild house, or we just have a spot in which we have a guild vendor. We'll just say that. So we don't even need a guild house. We have the ability to purchase, hire, whatever we are able to do within Pantheon, a guild vendor. This vendor, this person that we are acquiring for our guild, is directly for our guild and our guild only. So we control what he or she sells, and we allow them to purchase certain items based off of our needs for the guild. So again, we have that guild vendor. We hire that guild vendor, let's say. As a guild leader, I would look to that guild vendor and I would say, I'm going to use this guild vendor to, one, find ways to reward people for bringing materials to the guild, and basically depositing them within the guild so we can distribute them out as we need. Whether that means that we're giving them away, or whether that means that we're finding ways to help somebody at some level. And I haven't figured out all the details to that, but maybe as a guild, as a guild as a whole. And I'm not saying just like for personal reasons, or just because I know somebody, or just because they're an officer. No. I'm talking, I want something to be available for the guild, but I want to reward people, to give people some sort of a value back for giving to the guild and for helping members achieve whatever they're looking to achieve. So again, purchase the guild vendor. I place him out there, and let's say that we're leveling up, and we as a guild are struggling with keeping, let's say, the warrior's armor in check. And to keep his armor up to its highest quality, we keep having to repair it. And we actually have a blacksmith, and that blacksmith has a certain skill that, with a certain type of material, he can repair that armor. Now, this is just one warrior, but let's say that we have multiple groups going in multiple dungeons, and we have multiple warriors, but we have one blacksmith that has the skill to make enough of these crafting materials to repair gear, and we want to supply that said blacksmith with as much material as we can so that they can make this item for all of our warriors in our in our guild. For some of our warriors, we're gonna hand them out depending on what they're doing, whether it's a raid or something. We may take some with us and give them to them as needed, or we may give them out to a few of our lower level warriors, or just exploring, questing warriors as needed, just to friendly help, to let them continue to move forward without having to spend all that money. It's kind of a, I don't know, just a way of us helping people continue to play. So all that is still, there's a lot of details in there, but we'll try to work through that as it comes up. Not something we have to figure out today, but just ideas. Okay, so purchase that guild vendor. I need that crafting material, and let's say, as a guild vendor, I can offer it to the public, the general public, and I can say, look, Anybody that runs across stacks of this will pay 10 gold per stack until we get 10 stacks. And then within the guild, I can also have a second option, and I can say, if guild members run across this material and bring it here, we'll give you 1 guild currency, 1 guild coin per stack. And again, that value of the guild coin really doesn't have much to start with, because we're not really putting a lot of big items up on the list there to purchase at first. So there's not a lot of value in it. So they might just want to take the gold. However, if they were to gather that while exploring, while questing, while doing dungeons or raid, if they were to gather that material just freely, and they wanted to go sell it to just a random vendor down the, down at the market, that random vendor may only pay them a 2 gold for a stack of that, because it's how the game is. It's not really going to give you what it's worth, and they may not want to go in the auction place and do the whole, auction market trades, type deal. They may not want to have to go try to find buyers. They may want to give it to the guild. However, they may need some way to repair their own gear. They may need some way to continue to earn money. And for me as a guild leader, I'm looking for ways to help provide them with benefits. So I'm going to offer them the same thing I offer anybody else, the 10 gold, or I'm going to offer them a way to trade it in for guild currency. So
I'm just throwing this out. I know we both played WoW. So if you had like a miner and a leather worker and they needed to trade mats, would you still have to do that through the
No.
or would you just do player to player, or would you encourage people to do the transfer to show stuff coming and going through the
Absolutely not. I would encourage player to player transaction more than anything.
Okay, just could
Yeah.
do with the community. Like I was saying earlier, the only problem I have is I feel like people farm out guild currency or DKP or whatever, and so when they go into the raid, it's happened to me several times. An item drops that's an outrageous upgrade for me, and someone else gets it, and it's only a 1-2% upgrade for them, but because they farmed more items than me or this or that, they get that slight upgrade. I know that comes down to, be a good player, support your community, support your guild, everything like that. But people, always want to min max and stuff like that. Why not looking forward to the actual group play? That was my only concern with if you were able to trade mats in as well, because there are those people that can play 8, 12, hours a day, and yes, it's only 1 per stack, but they could have a route where they get 50, 100 stacks an hour.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And that's a very, very valid point, and a concern of mine as well. I can't play 8, 12 hours a day. I wish I could. I can't. It'll never happen. I'm never going to be that guy. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm looking for ways to mitigate that risk. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for me, I want guild currency to be valuable, and I don't want it to be in abundance, if that makes sense. I don't want to have just thousands and thousands and thousands of guild coins, points, whatever you want to call them, guild currency rolling around. I want to find a way to limit this based off the number of members we have in the guild, and find a way to make it to where even to this point, and I haven't thought of the perfect solution for this, because I do worry about that, and that is something that I have to figure out a way to address. Now, again, if someone's raiding in the guild, and okay, so I'll put it this way. Here's how I would think of this, and this is another way I'm thinking of doing it as well. Let's say that I, as a guild leader, say that we as a guild for the raid need this material. I'm going to offer I need 10 stacks of it for the raid tonight. I'm gonna offer 10 guild currency for the entire 10 stacks, or 1 stack per guild currency, whichever people are able to do. But that's 10, and I might just offer 20 for people that are showing up at the raid. So it's not really going to make or break the bank. However, here's the thing with this, and this is my idea. This is how I've been thinking of this. One, I'm looking at, do I cap players? Meaning,
A weekly cap.
yeah, well, not just a weekly cap, but do I have a cap period? Like for some of those top tier raiders, like you're saying, that do it every week, and they may really have pretty much every single item that they can get. I don't want them to be just accumulating guild currency for 2 years until something else opens up, or a year until something else opens up, and then all of a sudden,
rare mount or
yeah, and then
like that.
yeah, and then something, and all of a sudden they've got like 20 times the normal amount of guild currency, so no one's gonna outbid them. I would rather put a cap on it and say it doesn't matter what you do once you hit, I don't know, I'm just gonna throw a random number out there. Once you hit 1,000 guild currency, once you build up to that point, you can't go over that. There's no going over that. Now, the only way to continue to build guild currency is really to give some away, and then you'll gain it back. So there's no point in trying to continue to get more than that. It's really, again, you're allowing people to almost catch up to them, even if they're not there every week, and that way they can compete for items. Now, that's a random number. Again, these all are subject to a lot of change and thought as I continue to think through this. So, okay. So again, capping it for weekly or capping it for lifetime period, like putting a hard cap on it where you can't go over that. Things like that potentially could help with that. I could also look at, instead of the guild, so I think of the guild as kind of like the treasury. We can potentially make as many guild coins as we want, but we really don't want to do that too much. We want to limit the amount of guild currency that's out there so that it's being distributed and traded back and forth, and we want to find a way to make it to where it's continuing to move from hand to hand and not just sitting in one hand or the other. So we'll have to figure out, like I said, I'll have to keep brainstorming on this to figure out how we do that. What's the kind of soft limit on the amount of guild currency we have out there? Is there a soft limit? And maybe those caps, those weekly or hard caps for that we set in place, maybe those are what help ensure that we don't have too much guild currency out there. Okay, so here's my thought on that. So as a guild leader, if I need 10 stacks of something for that raid that night and it's benefiting the entire raid, I will, as a guild leader, offer those guild currency points for stacks, or I'll pay gold, out of what we as a guild have accumulated, gold wise. So basically, we're taking it out of the bank and we're saying we're going to pay for it, and then we're going to help the entire raid, not just one person, but the entire raid to move forward in this particular instance. So here's the other thing of that. If I have a crafter, and let's say, like you said a minute ago, we have a leather worker who really needs some hides to complete some stuff, and they might be for the guild, they may not be. Hey Pi, but.
Yeah, Pi.
Let's say that we have a leather worker, they really need some hides. I'm not going to say that I'm going to go and put guild currency out there to get them hides. Here's where I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to tell them, okay, you need hides. We can either say, or you can either donate. Let's say you need 60 hides. You need 3 stacks. Well, let's say they're 20 hide a stack. So let's say you need 3 stacks of hides, and you're willing to pay for it. So let's start with the guild. Instead of going to the auction house and buying it, you say, I want to offer the guild something, to give me these hides or to help me get these hides. And they can either do it as a favor, or I can reward them. And let's say I'm just a generous guy, I really want to reward them, so I would like to put it on the vendor. So I'm going to say, as a guild leader, I will say, okay, great, sorry, you need 60 stacks, that's 3, or you need 60 hides, it's 3 stacks of hides. The going rate's 15 gold a stack in the auction house, so I'll let you pick what you would like to purchase them for. from the guild members, and maybe you say, well, I'd like to try to purchase them for 10 gold. Okay, great. And then you also say, and I'd also offer up 3 of my guild currency, 1 per stack if they want to choose that as an option. So I'm like, okay, great. So what I would tell you is, okay, great. What you need to do for me is I'm gonna put this on the vendor, and then if someone purchases it, then you're gonna have to pay me the 3 guild currency if that's what they choose and that's what they take, or you're gonna have to pay me the 30 gold, whichever one they take or however they take it. And then basically I'm gonna be kind of that medium point, or let the vendor be that medium point between you and that person, so that maybe you don't have to be online. Maybe you can put it on there, you can log off, go to work, and then come back in the afternoon, and you've used either your guild currency to purchase something, or you've used money. But it's transactions between the guild, and that's just something that is beneficial to help build those transactions, or to help that. But as you said a minute ago, the number one thing I would like to do is see people, willing to give, more so than anything, back to each other. So if there's ever a time where they're like, hey, dude, no, don't put it on the bank, or don't put it on the vendor. I've got 60 sacks sitting in my bank. Let me just give them to you. You don't have to pay for them at all. That's where I would love to be. But in reality, if it's something that's very hard to attain, and you're going to offer the guild, you're saying, look, I don't have 50 gold to pay for a stack of this, but I have 3 guild currency points. I'll trade 3 guild currency points for a stack of this if anybody in the guild will help me out. Because you don't want to necessarily take quote unquote money out of somebody's pocket. I'm one of the people that I'm gonna want to try to give it to you if I can. I'm really gonna want to try to give it to you. But if I spent like 6 hours playing and got 1 stack of it, and I was really actually trying to get stacks of it to sell in the auction house or something like that, maybe there's a way that we can find a common median. Maybe I can give it to you for half price. Maybe I can give it to you for guild currency. It's just a different alternative to paying for something with gold. So.
I have one question real quick. With the guild currency, player to player transfer, is that going to be possible in between, we'll just call them recruits in the guild, or will there have to be an officer to go into the sub tab of the guild to minus the points and add it to somebody else?
No, that's a great question. That's one that I'm going to raise up for this whole idea, because that's a pivotal factor of this. So again, let's say that sorry, you're exploring over in I don't know, what's the zone? I've just I don't know a zone right now. My mind is just blanked.
It's perfectly fine.
Well, now it's gonna bug me. Anyways, so if I'm out in the world, and I'm gonna look up one real quick because I gotta find one. Okay, so if you're in the Silent Plains, for example, I just pulled the map up and it's the first thing I saw there. So you're in the Silent Plains and you're out there exploring, and let's say that I read online that there's a perception system out there, or a dungeon out there that I personally need to go to. Let's say I'm playing a cleric and you're on a warrior. I'm just, examples. And I'm like, hey, sorry, I'm looking for some help with getting out in the Silent Plains, and I'm wondering if you would be our tank for the night. Could you help me explore that area and look for this perception, and maybe help me do this quest line tonight? And you're like, yeah, man, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Okay, great. Well, then we spend like half the night looking for this thing, and we finally find it, and I finally get what I need and everything like that. I would love to be able to, if I'm like a top tier raider or something like that, if I'm like one of these guys that's got, guild currency just kind of like sitting on the side, and I'm not really using it, or if I'm using it even, doesn't matter. But if I've got some guild currency, I may be like, you know what, sorry man, you really helped me out tonight. You spent 4 hours just really digging around for this thing, and it had no real benefit for you, but you took some time and helped me out. I would love to be able to give you some guild currency. I may not have gold because I'm broke all the time and I spend all my money on I don't know, um, kitten collars or something like that, and I love kittens, so I can't help myself. But I have no gold, but I got guild currency, so I throw you some like 5 currency spot and just say, hey man, thanks for the help. I would love to see players be able to do those transactions, to be able to like kind of give each other that. If someone new comes into the guild and I'm like, hey man, here's 10 guild currency to help you get started. You know, that type of stuff, even though they might never or not be use it for the next 6 months because they might be level 2, but still that stuff is memorable. It's nice to be able to do something like that. If I have somebody new come into the guild, I would love to be able to give them out of my own stack, not the guild stack, but out of my own stack, some guild currency and say, hey man, thanks for joining the group. We've heard a lot of good things about you. You really been playing with the guild for a while now and just not been a part of it, and everybody loves playing with you. So we're glad to have you. Here's some currency to get you started, and look forward to seeing you continue to play with us. Something like
I,
that.
I really do like that idea. I just, of course, fear that when someone's leaving the guild, they have 150 DKP, guild currency, whatever, they just drop it to somebody random in the guild, and that person just got a huge, like, bonus because, that person was leaving the guild anyway, so why does he need it?
Well, and that's always a factor. There's always loopholes. There's possibilities for days potentially. But then again, if you have that cap, like you talked about, maybe a weekly cap, maybe that 150 is over the weekly cap. So now even if they raid, it doesn't matter. They've already capped out for the week. Or
that's why I can't wait to start seeing some of the raids.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of the dungeons they've done, or the wizard tower, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But
Well,
they haven't released too much, like on how many bosses are going to be in a raid, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why can't wait for the pre-alpha, but then everyone has to sign the NDC, so can't share anything we find out either way.
the guild currency would not need to transfer. What Sari's saying, so if you had guild currency on you and you decided that this guild wasn't for you and you just wanted to throw it to somebody random, um, you know, what's going to stop you from doing that? And what's going to stop them from being now, kind of at a very, very high advantage? To me, honestly, the way I see it is they're probably going to throw it to somebody that they played with and they like. And if they don't like anybody, they're probably not going to throw it to anybody. Or they might throw it to like a level 2 or 10 character just randomly because, they can. But again, it doesn't have to transfer to anybody. The ideal situation would be that guild currency wouldn't transfer to anybody. It would just kind of go back into the quote unquote treasury or guild bank, which is really just kind of like an or infinite number of hidden guild currency in the background that is only maintained and monitored by how the leader or the leaders of the guild determine how guild currency is given out. Can only transfer with officer or guild leader approval. Just thinking that should be a check in place. Well, again, you want to find ways. You want to find ways for the guild to, I don't know, really feel like they're a part of being able to use their own currency how they want to use it.
Yeah, I don't know if there will be a guild vendor, but if there was a guild vendor and it could be set for currency, that would be the check in place. You just have to not do it from person to person, and if you wanted to give someone the guild currency for good play, helping you out in a bad situation, you just talk to an officer and say, "Hey, I'd like to, you know, what am I like? I want to let everyone know this guy is doing work for the guild."
Yeah.
And then the officers then can reward that player as they see fit.
Yeah, certainly. So real quick, I know that we talked about it a minute ago, but I completely agree with you. I want to go through the list here that I have of where I would see currency being something that you could do. And again, I'm not sure, you're not sure, no one's sure if we're gonna have a vendor for the guild. I would hope so. I think that it's been in a few games and it's been something that's really cool. Um, I think it's a really neat idea, and I would love to see a way for us to have sort of some sort of internal way of kind of giving back and forth. Even and again, I love the idea of guild currency, but if there's not guild currency in place, if something like that is not going to exist, even finding a way to put a guild price on an item versus an outside the guild price.
You've said in previous streams that if you can do an outside source, so if you had like a website, you could still do guild credit, but you'd have to run it through that, which isn't as convenient. But I've definitely seen a lot of guilds, do things like that, and there are add-ons and everything else, and it's an MMO, so add-ons will be coming.
Well, and they're gonna limit them. They're gonna limit them. But yeah, there's definitely gonna be ways to maintain that. I would hope, and I said this very clearly, I would hope that anything external to Pantheon is supplementing what we have in Pantheon. I'm hoping that we have everything we need to be successful and to effectively run a guild within Pantheon. I want it to be within the game. I'm hoping that 2017, 2018, 2019 going forward, we'll have what we need to actually run a guild fully within the game itself. However, like you said, there's always ways to go outside of the game and make those happen.
Yeah, I definitely prefer an in-game system. It just makes everything so much simpler, and people won't be like, "Oh, you forgot this and this and that," because you can just look it up. It's live updated and everything else, so it shouldn't be that hard for the team to do that if that's the path they seek to go.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So again, I'm going to stick on guild currency here because I know I can talk about the other alternatives and things for days as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But with me, I see, and I've got 7 things on here now that I see as things that we would look at. Can we give guild currency as an option, and does it make sense? And these are the things that I would think of. This is how I would go about this thinking process or thought process on this. So raiding, guild currency for raiding, absolutely. I think that's kind of the core of guild currency in a sense where you're wanting to progress the guild through in-game raids, in-game content, 24-mans, whatever the actual number ends up being. You're wanting to progress through those to continue to get the best gear, best spells, best abilities, like whatever drops you're going to get off of that, best material for crafting, things like that. You're going to want to continue to progress through there because really that's a major piece of the game. Even though it doesn't, I want to be clear on this. It's a major piece of the game. It's not the game like it has been in other MMOs. It's not the entire game. Raiding is not everything. It is a piece of the game, and you want to be able to do all pieces of the game. So, you have raiding, of course. You want to be able to potentially give some for raiding. Dungeons. Well, yeah, maybe you want to be able to give some from dungeons as well. I don't see why not. Now, do I want to have people or give people the ability to go farm dungeons? Absolutely not. I don't want them to be able to just farm a dungeon for an hour a run and get more guild currency than we get off of a raid, for example. We've got to have some. There's got to be something in there that allows individuals to maybe potentially go out there and group. For example, if I see that. I say, okay, we're gonna give you some guild currency for completing a I don't know, completing a dungeon, but I'd have to find a way to make that where let's say that it's a max level dungeon. It's a top tier dungeon. It's a 6-man still. It only requires 1 group, but it's max level. And let's say that I put in place, okay, great, you're going to be able to earn guild currency for completing this dungeon, but you're only going to be able to earn basically 1 guild currency per guild member you have in the group. For certain pieces of it. So I'm encouraging the guild to stay together. I'm also allowing them or encouraging them to do things besides just raid together. Maybe do dungeons, and then again, you want to be able to allow them to utilize potentially using guild currency, and it shouldn't be a big factor when you're in a dungeon. There's only 6 of you. There probably isn't going to be 2 of the same class, or there could be, but there probably in most cases isn't going to be 2 people looking for the same item. So you may run into that situation though where you have to utilize guild currency as a way to kind of do the tiebreaker of who gets what. I would hope though that you wouldn't need to use it for a dungeon. Personally, I would hope that being a guild, being in a small group, you'll be able to work it out. And like you said earlier, if I'm running through a dungeon with you and we're both clerics, and I see something that drops and it's a slight upgrade for me, but it's like leaps and bounds for you, just me. And if I'm somebody that's doing things with you consistently all the time and we're having fun and playing together, I'm gonna be like, man, it's gonna help the group if I give you this item more than it is gonna if I get it. So that would be my thought process, and I would hope others would fall into that same thought process as well, and say that it's really going to benefit our group, our little core group of 6 people here that do these dungeons together, to ensure that Sorry has this item versus Sacred, because Sacred is only going to get a point upgrade and Sorry is going to get a 10-point upgrade. So I would hope that is kind of the conversation that comes up, but
unfortunately, a lot of people get that tunnel vision. They just see an upgrade and auto equip it, and then it's too late to transfer it or anything. One other thing I was gonna point out with dungeons, I kind of feel like that falls into the community block.
Mhm.
Like you were saying, for every guild member that runs with you, you get one gold currency. If you help out your max level and someone level 10 or whatever is stuck on a dungeon for a quest, and you go help him, that that could be rewarded as well. That kind of thing for dungeons and guild currency.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that again, there's ways to make that where it makes sense. So, is there a way to give guild currency for people who are raiding together? Absolutely. Is there a way to give people guild currency or offer ways to utilize guild currency for people that are doing dungeons together? Absolutely. And I think it even goes past raiding in dungeons. For example, if sorry, let's say me and you are both playing clerics and we're running through, and let's say something drops and it's for a shaman and we don't have one in the group. However, it's not bind on pickup. It's something it's really good item. I may take that back to the guild and say, you know what, guys, I would much rather see somebody in the guild get this item than sell it on the auction house and just put the money in the bank. So, hey, and just like
or just give it away.
Well, absolutely, yeah. If I have a shaman who really needs it, and they've been contributing to the guild, they're a part of the guild, they're an active member, they're really helping build the guild and the community within it in a positive way. Absolutely, that might be just one of those things where I take it and I say, hey guys, if we're good, I'm gonna look to give this to so and so, and if everybody in the group is good with that, then we're good with it. But again, it's gonna be a discussion to make sure that we don't have issues with that, something like that. And regardless, if not, then I'll throw it on the vendor potentially and say, hey guys, or a first come first serve, whoever offers 10 guild currency for this item is yours.
At that point, who would get it? Because if it was a dungeon, it dropped in a dungeon, there'd be 6 people. They all have.
It would have to be agreement. It would have to be an agreement. I mean, really, if it's something that and that would have to be an agreement that was set beforehand. And for me, I would honestly say, look, guys, maybe that's something that has to be discussed as a guild. It's something that maybe we put in place. Hey, if you're doing a guild dungeon and items drop that are valuable for the guild, that you can do it one of 2 ways. You can either one say, hey, give it to the guild, or 2, you can roll on it and use your own guild currency to attain the item if you want to sell it. or however you want to do it as a group of 6. I'm not going to dictate how people do their own dungeons. That's not what I'm here for. I'm going to allow them to do it, but I want to give them a way to give back to the guild if they determine that that's what they would like to do with it. Any
Yeah,
dungeon that I'm going to be in, I'm going to look to give it back to the guild myself.
Oh, me too, absolutely. But Mass used this word. I can't remember what it was. But it was like volunteering, but without a choice.
Voluntold.
Yeah, voluntold. That's
Yeah.
what it was. I don't want to see that at all.
Absolutely not.
But you know, I do. I'm a community-based player. I think you join a guild to help everyone out. If you don't want to help people out, don't join a guild.
Yeah.
Just play solo.
Absolutely.
It's fine. If that's your play style, more power to you. But guilds are there for the community, and if you're in one, you should support it. So.
Well, and not only that, but I'm not here to run a quote unquote hardcore guild.
Yeah.
I'm not here to set people's times. I'm not here to tell people when they have to be on, when they have to be off. I'm not here to tell people how to play their character or who to play or what to play. I'm simply here to play the game, and I'm here to help find ways to build community interaction and bonds as we play the game. And again, I'm just looking for alternatives to money gold value. I'm looking for ways to make it a little bit, I don't know, interesting in my mind, a little bit more involved with what we're doing as a community. Ardquill Guild confirmed? None. Ardquill. I like that. But again, it's one of those things where uh, I'm trying to find alternatives to gold transfers, because here's the thing that I don't want to see. I know for a fact, no matter how hard we try or don't try, there's going to be members of the guild who say, "Look, guys, I really want to get back to the guild, but I need some gold, and this item sells for 200 gold, and I would much rather use my guild currency to purchase the item, or I'd much rather just if y'all don't have a problem with it, part of the dungeon, if y'all don't have a problem with it, I would like to take this and sell it myself." If someone says, "Well, I would like to as well," then they can again use guild currency to determine who gets that. But that's the type of situation that I'm trying to I kind of plan for, and make it so that when that situation comes up, it can be handled in a mature, friendly manner, and it's not kind of this argument, or it's not just what I don't want to see is just a simple roll of some dice determining, what is what. And the reason I don't want to see that, and this is the only reason I don't want to see that, is because I don't want to see someone who's brand new to the guild and never been a part of it for more than a day come in and jump in and run something and basically, I don't say ninja loot, but basically ninja loot something, which means
Oh yeah.
they roll the dice, they get a 99 just out of luck, and it's something that sells for high. They don't need it on their character, but they're gonna go sell at the auction house, and they're just like, "Hey man, appreciate it, thanks, bye." And next, 2 days later, they're out of the guild.
Yep, the pug raider.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's stuff like that happens all the time. I'm just trying to find ways to try to help prevent little things like that, and I'm also looking for ways to help when those situations come up to where two people are like, "Hey, I would like to sell this item." Then okay, great. Let's see who has more guild currency they're willing to spend on it. That's just my thought. All right, hold on. I gotta read this real quick. I want to see a guild only vendor, meaning only those in the guild can access it. Absolutely. Items from raids normally would rot. Maybe an upgrade. Yeah. No. Okay. So, absolutely. I would love to see the vendor have the ability to. So here's what I think of when I think of that comment. You would like to see a guild only vendor, 100%. I would like to have that ability though to sell things outside the guild as well. Whether that's two separate vendors or whether I have the ability to toggle. For example, if I have the ability to put an item on there, and I say this item is only accessible to guild members, that works. Whether it's through gold or guild currency, it doesn't matter. If I'm able to put on there, this is in the public, this is a public item, or a private item. So like basically, I'm saying it was guild only or public. Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. I actually that in my mind, I just kind of assumed that was going to happen. If you have a vendor that's able to use guild currency, I would assume that you're going to have a vendor that's able to just sell to the guild as well. Or you can lock that vendor down to where he can't be accessed or accessed through anybody but people in the guild. One of the way or the other. Yeah, I completely agree with that. A hand-me-down recycle system to others in the guild. Yeah, I mean, if you have the ability to take an item off and it's not bound to you, and you would like to give it to somebody else in the guild, absolutely. I mean, I think that should be something that's worked out among guild. Like Sorry was saying earlier, you want to have ways you want the guild to be kind of a community. You want them to just be willing to give to each other. Especially if me and Sorry are doing dungeons on a nightly basis. I'm gonna wanna, if I have an item come my way from a raid one night, and then I get into it, I get out of it. I go do a dungeon with Sorry, and I'm like, yo, Sorry, I had this item. I actually upgraded it last night in the raid. Do you want it? And Sorry's like, yeah, of course, it's an upgrade for me. Then I'm gonna be like, all right, cool, here you go. I would hope to see that happening in the guild. That's just something that has to be built through a good community within the guild. It's something that you can't enforce per se. I can't tell people they have to give their hand-me-downs to guild members. I'm hoping that we build a community, we build a bond between the guild and the members, that they want to do things like that, not that they have to, because you can't force it upon people to do something like that.
Yeah, the thing I would add to that is, like all MMOs, you need some type of actual in-game currency, gold, platinum, whatever it may be, because you still do have to buy outside sources. You're not going to get everything provided from the guild. So selling those old items is, part of how you get currency. So yes, do some hand-me-downs if you. I don't know how they're doing their looting system. Like in Warcraft, blues and greens can be anything. You could be running a priest and start getting leather drops and plate drops. It didn't matter. And with like any stats, if you got those, you probably should throw those in the guild bank for people. It's not worth much money, and like they can be an upgrade. You have to watch out for people that would just take stuff and then go vendor it themselves, out of the guild bank. Like you said, there's a loophole for everything. But definitely, hand-me-downs are always a good thing, but can't truly be expected because people need that outside currency.
Absolutely, and like you said, there's loopholes, and that's something that has to be set in some sort of the rules, for the guild. If I as a leader am putting items for the guild in the guild vendor for others to purchase, and I'm saying that okay, hey, guildies, you can go purchase this for guild currency, and I find out that I have one guy who is just out there snagging everything up. He's a raider. He's really good at what he does. Let's say he's a wizard. I don't know. No, a rogue. Let's say he's a rogue, because rogues are always shady like that. So let's say our top rogue in the guild. He's got all the items he needs. He doesn't need anything else. He just wants money. He just wants gold. And I put items on there, and all of a sudden I see him snagging these items, and then all of a sudden I see these items on the auction house, in town, or somebody tells me, hey, I just saw that item over there in the auction house. I don't know if y'all are selling it or what, but somebody bought it and is now selling it over there. I'm gonna raise an eye to that, and I'm gonna have to look into it. I'm gonna see, okay, oh, what are you doing? Where did you get, what's going on? Because if I find out that somebody in the guild is continuing to purchase these items and go sell them outside for outside currency, that really defeats the purpose. I'm putting these items there to help um, build the guild up and to allow members to uh, again become stronger, become better equipped. I want them, even if they couldn't be in a part of the raid, I want them to have the ability to get some of that gear, if possible, and to continue again to build the guild to make it stronger, so that when we do need to pull a replacement in or an alternative in, or if we have people rotating in and out, as we do raids and things like that, I want them to be geared. I want them to have some of the same gear, and maybe they weren't able to attend that night. But again, if someone's going and buying guild items and just taking them to the auction house or the market or trading them outside in the street for gold, I'm gonna have to address that. As a guild leader, I'm gonna have to say, it's not acceptable. Um, Maybe it's a rule. Maybe I'm saying, look, I'll give you a warning because that's just how I am. But if I see it again or if I hear about it again, it's no questions asked. Yeah, I gotta let you go. I don't care if you're the best rogue we have in the group. You're really hurting the guild at this point in time and kind of abusing your ability to play 8 hours a day and do raids every single night.
So, I was reading Dave's stuff, and I agree with like raid items and stuff like that. If there's raid recipes and raid, I don't know, just weapons and armor and stuff. That stuff's really hard to get. You have to have a group of 24 or more. So I agree. Just leave that in the guild bank if no one in your raid needs it, and then people can buy that with currency. Um, any guild currency they need. It might take them a while to get it, but even if that's old raid stuff, like that's from the first raid, and we're on the third raid now. Uh, Someone leveling up an alt or a new character when they reach that point, that's still a huge upgrade. I'd rather see it stay in the guild and constantly drop back down. Um, I don't know if items in this game are bind on equip at all. Um, I remember one of the earlier dev streams, they said they weren't going to have any like bind on equip items, but they might have changed that.
All right, let me read that real quick, Day. Things you trade normally, the people can handle that. I'm talking raid loot, no trade, no drop, etc. Things. Okay, so yeah, like Sarge just said, we have one of the things that I've heard as well is when it comes to bind on pickup. Bind on pickup, from what I understand, is really not going to be a thing within Pantheon. They want items to be movable between players. Um, so, again, that's not for every item, but I think for the majority of the items, there's not going to be a level restriction on the item, so anybody can equip it. However, you may not be fully capable of utilizing that item at that time. So, just based off level and what skills you have and don't. And then again, bind on pickup items. They're, from the most part, from what I understood, there's not going to be a lot of bind on pickup items. It's going to be very limited. Even some of the top tier items in the game are not going to be bound to you per se. So you can use them and then potentially turn around and sell them, hand them down, trade whatever you would like to do with that item. Maybe after you find an upgrade. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I believe they did that because with the different sets, you have to change your sets a lot. I was reading on one of the forums, such as if you're in a volcano, you have to wear, armor with additional fire resist and corrosive. If you go to the ice fields, you have to, you know, wear like fur, I guess. Um, these, these type of things. So you might need different gear, and it's just easier to be like, okay, I'm completely done in this area. Someone else might need to go to that area, and they've already done this area. Let me trade up the gear, and so I can continue on. You know, I'm not positive that's why they did it. It just makes sense to me because of all the environmental statuses in the game.
Yeah, and to add on to that, so you're not only looking at gear, but you're looking at the acclimatization system. So you're looking at it's actually a separate tab within the character screen or inventory right now that they showed, where you have different tiers of acclimat. And I struggle with this word all the time,
Yeah.
but basically you have different tiers of different potions, level 2, level 3 tier of maybe like frost resistance that you can add to your helm, add to your legs or something like that. So you can change those out freely. From what they were saying, they're permanent for the most part. Maybe some of them aren't, but maybe that's more the top tier level. But for the most part, these are permanent, so you can freely change these out as you need to, but you will need to based off of the scenario you're in. Then on top of that, you have certain gear that's going to be more viable in certain areas. Of course, I don't necessarily think that it's really for that piece alone. I think it's more because they don't want to see gear go to waste. They don't want to see it. But again, you want to create something to where the community, the economy can really people can do what they want with things and really kind of create their own little world. If you just happen to be the guy that knows everybody and you're just the friendliest guy in the world, yeah, allow people to give that people some good stuff. I mean, if some cleric sits in the middle of the city 24/7, sorry, and just sits there and reses corpses as they get drugged to him, because he's a nice guy. I don't know, allow people to give him something. Sure, but there's also you want to see those items being sold. You want to see them hit the marketplace. You want to see all kinds of stuff. You don't want to see them locked to only people that are raiding, because again, raiding is a piece of this game. It's not the game, and I feel like that's what a lot of other games did, was they locked these items to people that did the raid only because they wanted people to do the raid, because that's really all the game was meant for in reality. Was that raid.
If they do this, if they do that, I feel like they need to do the stat variances that you were talking about, because I feel like the market would get oversaturated really quick. Um, let's say like the Dream Killer,
Dream Crusher, yeah.
the Dream Crusher, has a high drop rate, and a couple guilds are doing it. After a few weeks, that'd just be flooding the market. It would be the same stat, nothing. There would be no variation on it if it was static, which they talked about doing. But like in your one video about status, you were talking about slight variations on main stats and secondary stats, and I feel like if almost nothing is BOE, you'd have to have that stat variation, or you just flood the market with the same item.
Well, and you have to remember too, yeah, you might have a lot of the same item. Let's say if it's in like kind of an easier dungeon, and that there's tons of people running through it, you might have a pretty good amount of those. But if you're talking, excuse me, if you're talking the higher end dungeons, or even the higher end raids, those top tier raids, if you're talking that, potentially you could have like a 1% drop rate on something. And it doesn't matter, 100 guilds could go through there and down that one monster, and maybe only one get it. You're not going to see that hit the market. You're going to see that going to somebody in the guild.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's always a possibility that you could see, a couple years down the road, these become more available to people on the market. However, if you're doing it right, even then you're probably looking for somebody in the guild to get that item to. Whether maybe it's an alt, or maybe it's somebody new to the guild, somebody new to the Pantheon. 2-3 years down the road, maybe there's somebody that comes new to the game, and your guild, everybody's got that item, nobody else needs it, not even on their alts, and you're like, man, we don't need the money, welcome to the guild. Here you go. And hey, happy birthday. That guy just got whatever he got. I don't think you're going to see a flood of top tier items hit the market, even if there isn't a stat variation, which I think is a cool idea. But even if there isn't one, just because of loot rate or drop rate, and just because of the fact that people are in the guild or are doing that, are probably going to need it more than the people outside of it, or just the money for it.
Yeah, I I feel like there's always one or two items that are pretty easy to farm out in almost any MMO. Just like, oh, hey, there's a rare mob here, so you just stand here and you kill them a million times, and there's 20 shards or servers, and that so that boss is always getting farmed. Uh, the people farming it aren't really needing the item; they're just constantly dropping it on the auction house, which is like I said, without the stat variation, it's just the same item, and the market drops the price of it a lot lower than it needs to be. Why, if you have the stat variation, like you said, the ones with the perfect stats sell for 5 times as much as the ones with awful stats.
Well, and I'm right there with you. I mean, personally, I would love to see some sort of variation, but at the same time, if there's not, I'll be the devil's advocate here. Yeah, sure, it's gonna drop the price on the market. I guarantee you, after that price drops enough, people aren't gonna be farming it. That's just how it is. People are going to stop farming that item because it's not worth their time to farm it. It may when that first drops, that thing may sell for 500 gold. It may be a really cool, unique item, and everybody wants it, and then everybody realizes that it's got a 50% drop rate, and the mob spawns every 10 minutes, and all of a sudden now it's like 300 of them on the market. You can't even give them away anymore. They're selling for 5-10 gold a pop. People are just gonna be like, if I want it, I'll go do one of two things. I'll go buy it for 5 gold, or I'll go farm the monster for 20 minutes and potentially get it. Again, I think the economy itself would end up kind of making that issue go away, just for the simple fact of the price, the value of that item is going to be so degraded. Those people that are quote unquote farming that item are no longer going to want to do that. So, and that's with or without stat variation. Although I do love the idea of having some stat variation, because I think that it really increases the longevity of the game. But at the same time, it also adds a little factor of it potentially makes farming that monster that has that 50% drop rate and spawns every 10 minutes more viable. And it means that you're never going to be able to go find that monster without it being farmed, because there's 4 guys that sit there and just continuously farm it 24/7 looking for that perfect drop so they can sell it on the marketplace for an astronomical amount of money. So there are pros and cons to it. I'm not saying that system is perfect. I'm just saying that I think it's a neat idea. I'd like to see it kind of fleshed out to see if it holds any weight.
Yeah. So we should probably get back to the original topic. I know we got off of that quite a bit. We were I don't know, questing turned into dungeons, and dungeons turned into loot, and we just got really off track. So I don't know, I just feel like we should jump back onto the currency.
You're good, and I was just looking at the time here. I'm gonna wrap this up in 12 minutes tops.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go through these real quick, and yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing with Pantheon that I always get. I can go off 1,000 directions with these conversations, because I think there's just so much involved in an MMO, especially Pantheon, that we don't know. So the options, the differences, or I guess you could say assumptions we can make are endless. But thanks for keeping me on track here, and we'll get through this. So we've talked about raiding, we talked about dungeons. We talked a little bit about questing, and that's kind of where questing and exploring come together with the perception system. Or it may be that somebody's doing an epic quest. Let's say that me as a cleric, I need to do an epic quest to get a I don't know, a book or something like that. Maybe that, or maybe a shield or something. Maybe a mace is as an epic item, and I know that I need help with it. Maybe I'm willing to, because it's going to take 5-6 hours to complete this quest, but I really want to do it. Maybe I'm willing to offer up some of my own currency for people to help me out with that quest. And it's something that, again, you would want people to be you'd want them to want to help you, for one. But if it's one of those things where it's really kind of a drag to do, maybe you want to offer them some sort of reward for their help, for their time, something like that. Because really there's no true benefit in them completing this quest other than to get you your item. So if they're going along to tag along, even though they may want to, I may still say, hey, here's a quote unquote tip, thank you, type deal. So can you give guild currency for people that are questing? Absolutely. I think that you can do that 100%. Exploring is a tough one. Exploring is a very tough one when it comes to like giving guild currency for exploring, because here's the thing with exploring. Even though you may be the best explorer in the world, there's probably somebody that can play 14 hours a day, or that just happened to stumble across that before you did, and now if you're finding or discovering something, unless it's brand new, unless it's the first time it's ever been discovered, it's probably online somewhere and it's already been discovered. And because of that, it's tough to give people a reward for that, because you don't know if they went and read that on Reddit post that XYZ is here, or if 14 hours a day or more. Nice.
Hey, we found our explorer.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's one of those things where you don't know if they went and read that off of a tweet, a Reddit post, or on the forums, how to find that, or you don't know if they just kind of stumbled across it themselves. It's very hard to reward quote unquote exploring. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're an explorer and you're going through a really tough area, you may be wanting to give some of the people in the guild a little bit of an incentive to come help you explore, said area. Not just because they want to, help you, but you may be willing to say, hey guys, y'all want to come help? And let's say that you get 4 guys in the guild to help you, and they're great, they're awesome, but truth of the matter is, you still don't have a tank. And maybe the tank is like, you know what, I'm not really feeling it tonight, I'm just wanting to kind of sit here and fish. And you're like, look man, I get it, I really need help, I'd love to take you if you can. I'm even willing to offer some guild currency just for your time, if if that's something you're willing to do. And maybe that warrior's like, you know what, yeah, for five guild currency, I think I could help you out, man, even though I really want to sit here and fish tonight. Yeah, I can help you out, and maybe at the end of it, again, maybe he's a nice guy and he just says, don't worry about it, man, I had fun. Or maybe he's like, you know what, I appreciate it, thanks for the currency, and thanks for the good times, it was a lot of fun. Maybe the next time you need somebody, he doesn't even ask for it, he's just like, dude, let's go, that was fun. Again, it's just it's a way to, again, maybe it's just a way to help reward people, or maybe it's a way to kind of, I don't know, encourage people to come do something with you exploring wise. Is it possible to utilize guild currency in exploring? I think it is. Is it going to be done a lot? If the guild is the right way that I would like it to be, probably not. Because if you send a message out to the guild and say, hey guys, I'm trying to explore this area, if anybody want to come tag along and help me out, I would hope that you get 100 replies saying, oh, please pick me, no currency needed, just please pick me, I want to go do something. I would hope that's the situation you get, and it's not, oh, we have 100 replies, but we still don't have a warrior, or a tank, and we need somebody. I'd hope we'd have a guild in place with a community in place that people are just willing and wanting to go do something like that with each other and just have fun for the night. So again, is it possible? It's possible. Is it going to happen often? Probably not nearly as often as other things, if ever. And as a guild leader, I'm going to have to really figure out when testing the game, is there a way to reward people for exploring? Is there something that I need to find or someone needs to find that's worth giving somebody who's exploring, some value or some money back for that? It's tough because exploring can mean so many different things. You could be just in a dungeon and stumble across something and go, "Oh, I was exploring." Truth of the matter is, you might have just got dragged to a dungeon and you found something while in there. It's not really quote unquote that wasn't your first priority, but at the same time you stumbled across it. Do I reward you for it, or is that just luck of the draw? And we're happy that you're able to find that, and now you're sharing it with the guild, and it's just a community thing. Hey, everybody, come check this out. I don't know. It's a tough one. That's a really big tough one for me to answer, especially right now without knowing all the details that I would need to know. I find rewarding exploring from a guild level, as a tough one for guild currency.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes into perception. There's just not enough information about that.
Absolutely. So that was a tough one. PvP is another tough one. Again, if you're on a PvP server, you're a PvP guild. Which, by the way, I need to post this and make sure that's very clear. I'm looking to join a PvE server myself. That's my priority as a guild. I want to be on a PvE server. I don't have anything against PvP, but I want to play with people, not against people per se.
Yeah, they said they were going to do like battlegrounds in PvE servers, and PvP servers had battlegrounds and world PvP.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a PvP and PvE server, is just world PvP. So I don't want to be ganked while I'm out there, grinding something out or exploring or questing or whatever with my group. I don't want to be ganked. I don't want to have to worry about it. Instead, I would much rather be buffing and healing the group that I'm running by versus trying to kill them. That's just my thought. But PvP is a tough one for the fact of how do you reward world PvP with guild currency? I have no idea. I don't. That's not a thing that I think I need to worry about either for my particular stance. But because it will be somebody's potential issue or concern, I will take the time to think about it. But for me right now, I don't see how you could really do that. I mean,
I feel like you would do it like a raid. Yeah. Are you? We're gonna do a 10v10 tonight. Are you on time? Do you have your potions? Are you properly equipped for it? Or did you stay the whole time? How, things like that.
Well, I wouldn't even look at it as a 10v10 if you're gonna look at it that way.
Well,
you played WoW. Yeah, you played WoW, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing a raid on Barons. Your alliance. You're doing the raid on Barons. The whole guild shows up. You give everybody a little bit of incentive to show up on time, ready to go. You're going there just to slaughter everything you can. As a guild, your group, you're buffed, you got your potions on, your gear's ready to go. You're literally going there just to slaughter everything you possibly can. And yeah, potentially you can give some points for that. I can see that. Makes sense.
Yeah, I wonder how the guards are going to be in this game.
I don't know, man. That's exciting to think of though, because man, some games you don't mess with the guards. You don't.
Nope.
And
like I said, I used to play UO, and UO was one of those games.
Yeah.
That you didn't fight in town.
Yeah. Oh yeah. EQ. And maybe again, there was something about EQ that I was young during it, so I may be remembering some things that aren't quite as accurate as I think they are. But from my memory in EQ, I remember very, very many of times dying to guards, and I didn't even fight. I would fight near them. So, again, yeah, I'm curious to see how that happen, or how that all comes together as well. I think that's really neat. All right, so I got 1 minute, and I I think I can cover this in 1 minute because I've talked about this the entire way through. Community. Um, can you give guild currency for community type work events, things that happen? Absolutely. Point blank.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Point being, I would hope that it doesn't require guild currency. I would hope that the community is strong enough that maybe guild currency isn't an enhancement, a tip, a thank you, another way to say thank you to some people, or just a gift. But can it be given for being a part of the community? Absolutely, absolutely.
I think it can go beyond that as well, such as people can say, "Hey, this report to an officer or the guild leader. Hey, this person really helped me out today. He spent an hour, corpse dragging my body so I could get rezzed, or you know, I saw him stand in this low area buffing people all day, or this or that, where they're not really seeking um, guild currency, but because they're participating in the whole community of Pantheon, it's almost like, hey, we've gotten some good news about you, and I know some people just reward that with ranking up in the guild, but if it does show like, hey, we really do respect that action, and it encourages it across the board, and like you said, uh, like this is Pantheon is a community based game. It's going to be really hard to solo, and they made it for group community play. So I think anything that can encourage people to strengthen the community is always good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up because I know I can talk about this for
Yep, yep.
days and hours and weeks. I'm gonna wrap it up here, but yeah, I can't thank you enough. Sorry for coming on here, man. I appreciate the input. Hopefully you'll continue to give me feedback on things that I'm thinking of because as we get the guild kind of set up, um, right now we're at the starting phase where we're just really putting it all together, getting everything lined up, getting that foundation down. And these ideas are ideas until Pantheon comes out with what they're going to actually allow us to do. Then we're going to throw ideas up to them. But until they come out and let us know what they're going to do, for sure, we're just assuming and making assumptions. And then once we get those once we get that actual detail back from Pantheon of what's going to be available to us, we can really kind of iron out those foundational rules within the guild and how we're going to run it and everything like that. So, feedback at this point in time is crucial to helping me kind of really understand what the need of the guild is and how we're going to help build the community even stronger.
Yeah, like I said, I just wish I had pre-alpha, but you know,
Well,
you know how that goes.
I will enjoy it for the both of us. So,
Yep, yep. Unfortunately, you gotta do the non-disclosure.
yes,
But
yes, yes.
uh, hopefully pre-alpha is short and alpha comes out quickly.
Yep,
But
exactly.
let's wrap it up for the night. Thank you for having me for this stream and everything. Hopefully there was some good information put out about, the ideas of guild currency, how it can be done properly, and everything like that. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully I'll see you sometime.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Find me around. I'll be on Discord all the time. And you're welcome to hang out in here anytime you want to, man. Just jump in. We're gonna get on some. What are we gonna get on tonight, Satori? PUBG, Fortnite, Rocket League, Barbie.
Rocket League. All right, guys. You have a
All
nice
right.
night.
Later. Sorry. Satori, can you hear me? Yeah, mic isn't working. Okay, I'll let you fix that. While you fix that, I'll wrap it up. So, thanks everyone for stopping by for the Pantheon discussion tonight. We're going to continue to discuss guild currency and things like that as we go forward. There's a lot that I need to vet through as far as my ideas go. I want to give a suggestion to BR about it, but I want it to be a suggestion that is very well thought through, because I want to hopefully do a lot of the legwork for them, in the sense that I know they're very, very busy in this aspect. So hopefully we can kind of come and bring all the information together that we've gathered, all the different opinions, feedbacks, and thoughts and things like that, and make a pretty good statement for potentially having something like guild vendor and guild currency within the game. So thanks everyone for stopping by for the Pantheon discussion. I'm gonna jump over into some other game now, and probably show you how bad I am at actually playing a game versus talking about one.
Terrible.
Oh, this guy. What's up, man?